Hi, welcome to Conversations at the Effie, where we meet interesting people at Kamloops and see what they do. We're located here in the unceded territory to Kamloops Taste-Wet'suwet'en at the Effie Arts Collective right in Kamloops, and today we're talking to an expressionist, Stace Dewolf. Welcome to the show, Stace.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
What is an expressionist?
Expressionist art is telling a story through powerful visual images and using bright color and using emotion to get what you're trying to get across for the viewer. So there's not a lot of, realism isn't something that's important. It's more about telling a powerful story with using those elements that I was talking about. I also try to blend a combination of cubism with my expressionism to try to create this new style.
How would you describe your style? Other than it is expressionist.
For me, I was heavily influenced by Picasso and Salvador Dali and Francis Bacon. A lot of the Renaissance painters, Caravaggio, I was inspired by. I loved how he used just a solid black background to create drama and that. So a lot of my pieces, I use a solid black with the bright colors, kind of for that contrast. But I think I love cubism because I love how you can break stuff down into form. I love angular lines. I like to play with those angles and those shapes with different tones of color and that. But it was the German expressionists that I've absolutely fell in love with as a German expressionists were painters during the First and the Second World War. So a lot of their paintings were anti-war, anti-fascism, what was happening with Germany at the time with the Nazis and that. And so their work and how that it was like what I was talking about earlier. It was like how they would paint, how they felt, and you could see it in the painting, and it makes you feel something when you look at it. And that's what I try to do with my work, is try to take that same ability to make people feel like I did when I saw that. So that's one thing that I really strive to do. So that's why I do this blending of expressionism and cubism together.
Is it a struggle then to communicate? It's very hard to make a clear statement. You're just expressing, I guess, emotion.
Yeah. It's no a secret. I've struggled with addiction for about 20 years of my life. 27 months clean and sober today. And so a lot of my work now, my work focuses on what that looked like for me, what my personal experiences were like with addiction and with mental health, and how, like for example, codependency or people pleasing and that, what would that look like if you were to create something? And that's what I try to do. I try to create these images of what that looks like, or the idea of that we are not our thoughts, like negative self-talk and that, so there's this duality in my work where I'm creating pieces that sort of show that struggle of what we can go through in our minds when we're struggling, or we are not our negative thoughts, those sorts of things. And again, I'll just speak from my own personal experiences that I struggled incredibly hard with self-esteem and that. And so, I'd pick up a stick and beat myself with it all the time. It was just, and so now that I'm living recovery, and I've learned how to, I don't think like that anymore. Like I'm at a place now in my life where it's like, how can I see it as sort of while I wouldn't wish addiction on anyone, I want to be someone that's a beacon for recovery, that recovery is possible. And so that's what I try to do with my work, is to share those and put it into my work. And I think that's why my work is very relatable. And I think that's one of the reasons how I can connect with people with my work is because people, I'm not the only person that's struggled with addiction. I'm not the first. I won't be the last. And I think that there's something for me that's I don't want to say healing about it. It's just I have a way to maybe impact positively in someone's life by creating art that I'm doing. Perhaps I can reach somebody or somebody, and it happens a lot on my Twitter and my Instagram, and then I get people messaging me all the time about I love your work. I can relate to it, and then we have a conversation about the similarities of what I was creating and and then they tell me some stuff about themselves, and it's that kind of human connection is in a day and age where there hasn't been a lot of it. It's pretty impactful. And I mean, and I try to be open. I'm open and honest. I'm not ashamed of anything that I've done. That was then, this is now, and now I have an opportunity to try to reach people and through my work and be positive with it.
You came up with a real distinctive style that's really recognizable now. Was there any point that you kind of doubted? You got into it, you were like just, really owning it, and then went, I wonder,
yeah,
doubting your choice.
It's funny. I talked to my wife always jokes. She goes, "Oh, you just do the same things over and over again." I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not. It's a running joke in the house." But yeah, I mean, I think when I was first trying to find myself within my work, I mean, I didn't really know why I was doing it. I just knew that I enjoyed creating art, and I just wanted to make as much of it as I could. But if you were to ask me 20 years ago, why did I do that? I wouldn't be able to tell you, other than I wanted to. And I think that's the biggest difference where I'm at today, is that I've honed my style, and I've tried to create a style that's unique, that's not, and I think like you said, it's recognizable. And I think that's a good thing, because it's like my own sort of thumbprint, I guess you could say. And I think that's important to have, because you don't want to just be creating art that just looks like everyone else's. You want to try to stand out, but do it subtly, not in a way like, "Hey, look at me, I'm great." You try to do it so that let your work do the speaking for you. So that's what, and it's taken me a lifetime to get where I'm at today, to get to that point. And yeah, and there was times where I was just like, "Oh, I don't know if, I don't really like that. I don't like this direction that I'm going. This doesn't," and I'll put it away, and then I'll find it maybe 6 months later or a year later, and I'm like, "This is exactly what I'm doing now." But then it was something that it made me feel really uncomfortable. I didn't like it. I hated it. So it's weird how that can happen, where you just kind of, you're doing something, you don't like it, and then turns out you started doing it anyway. And that's where I was mentioning earlier about, if something's making you feel uncomfortable, you should pursue it, because you're onto something. In my experience anyway.
It seems like you've moved around a little bit in your life. You've gone from the island, the interior, back and forth. Is it hard to establish roots in a community?
Yeah, it can. I think it's always tough when you're moving from, especially when you move as a teenager, moving from, because at Vernon High School was 8 to 12, and when I moved to the island, there was junior high, and then so I made the transition in Vernon from like elementary school. I was like, okay, I've done it. Like, I moved into grade 8. Like, it can't get any worse than this. And then you move, and then you have to do that transition again into another school, and then you have to transition again into high school, which was 10 to 12, and that was a tough town. Port Alberni was tough. It was really tough. So I mean, as someone that wasn't an outsider and someone that you know, I had to develop some tough skin in a real hurry for sure.
What's your advice for artists to get involved in their community? It seems like your art really transcends across the community with musicians, tattoo artists, you know, skateboarding and art going together. What can artists do to reach out to the community?
Well, I think finding your community is super important, and it's, I can't really speak for everyone here in Kamloops, but you know, I think that's the one thing that's really missing is a place where people, like a hub where people could go. I would encourage people that are getting into it to find other like-minded people that are into art, and go to events if there's any, and try to get out there and meet some of the artists in town. And that's how where you can start to foster those relationships where you can maybe start collaborating together on some projects, or and kind of just use social media to your advantage, and try to do it positively, and just try to connect. But yeah, I think it's one of the things I love to do eventually one of these days is I want to have a working art studio that's in the city for kids that can come, where I could have a group of artists and where we teach kids art, kids that have been told that haven't had the opportunity to understand what that feels like to create something, and to be involved in something positive that really. I think back at my experiences and how I felt when I first started creating art, and how it's molded me and kind of helped bring me to where I'm at today. And I want to be able to do something like that and have an art studio that's a working studio, and have a gallery attached to it, and could incorporate Web3 stuff that's coming, the metaverse, all that kind of stuff together. I mean, all these, there's a big renaissance happening in the digital art world right now, and it's really exciting. And but yeah, I would say that's to go back to your first question. There is just try to find your community, and find other like-minded people that believe in you, and then try to build on that and grow it.
It really, the way you use social media, it really brings in the audience into your studio. It really your audience knows you, the artist, as much as your art.
That's right.
Which is very interesting. Do you think you'd be successful without social media and the internet?
I think I look back at, well, because let's see, I went in art school in '90. I graduated high school in '91, so '92. I mean, there wasn't cell phones then. The internet wasn't invented yet, and it was your internet, or your social media was the group of people that you hung out with. I mean, get together with all your artist friends in the morning, and you talk about your work, and you talk about. I used to have to take all my physical work with me and drive to places, and hopefully someone would want to take the time to look through my stuff. Most of the time, it was like, I don't want this hanging in my place or whatever, right? It was a lot of it. It was hard. It was where we're at today is, I mean, I think social media can be extremely toxic, especially Facebook. I rarely go on Facebook anymore. I find it to be extremely it's just not for me anyway. I find it really toxic. So some of the positive things like I had by sharing my work and my process, and that is that I've developed friendships with people from all over the world. I have artist friends in South Carolina, North Carolina, in Germany, in Finland. We exchange work. We do live streams where someone will translate, or I just use a translator when I speak to everyone and in my messages and stuff, and it's great. It's awesome, and to meet other like-minded people, and I think that's really a good way to build your I don't want to say fans, but your supporters, people that believe in your work. I know I use Twitter quite a bit now. When I create a piece, I'll do a 2-minute video explaining it, what it means, why did I do it, talking about process, because part of when a collector sees your work, someone wants to believe in the artist. So like what you said it's really important. What you said is bang on. 50% of it is the art, 50% of it is the artist. You could make beautiful, incredible artwork, but have no, if you're not going to put yourself out there and you're not going to have those uncomfortable conversations, or if you're not going to speak, like I'm on Twitter Spaces all the time, talking all the time, and that's another way how you can get out there and you can promote yourself, and making videos and doing that. If you don't do stuff like that, then people, they just look at it and they go, well, it's just another nice looking picture. They don't know why you did it, or what were the reasons behind it. Why did you choose those colors? Why did you paint the trees that way? Or why did you do that? Or where were you born? What got you into art? All those sorts of things is what makes the difference of an artist that's gonna, I think, be more collectible and in the eyes of collectors, and because that's where, it's not just about buying the art and trying to hopefully flip it, and you're investing in people, and you want to be invested in an artist that does that. So that's something that I think my openness and my honesty, how I've been through some of the struggles in my life, is it's easy to talk about fun stuff and positive stuff about art. It's not difficult for me, but I would encourage and invite artists that maybe that aren't practicing that to start looking at it for sure.
Is the state of the world, we've just, we're in this pandemic still, and as an expression of emotions, how is the state of the world affecting your art?
That's a good question. I think it's funny. I was kind of going through my own sort of struggles at the time. I was actually in treatment when the pandemic started. I remember saying to my friends in there, I was just like, everyone was like, "Oh, this Stace obsessing about the news again," because I was like, something's coming. I kept saying this doesn't look good, and and I was going through my own thing during that time. I was getting healthier, and I think I was focusing more on the positive things that I was changing in my life at the time. As much as I was obsessing about what was going on in the world and figuring out, I was still trying to maintain that positive part that I was trying to do with my work. That's not to say that it didn't affect me, or that I wasn't saddened by the countless deaths and where we're at today. Example with what's happening in the Ukraine, and that, it affects me, but I try. It just makes me want to create art more. I think. I don't know. I think for me, creating art's probably the most honest and authentic thing that I've ever done in my life, and the one thing that I can, just the one thing that I do that helps me just cope and to get through things. Because even when I was in active addiction, and when I was still creating art, I was still doing stuff, but it was just getting like flickers and little acknowledgments of what I should be doing, or where I should be going. And when I look back at all the work that I've done during that time, it tells a story, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is where I was feeling. Like it was weird. Like I was living, because when you're in active addiction, you're hiding what you're doing. You're living two different lives. There's this part of me that was dying on the inside, hating my life for what I was doing, and then putting on this fake facade that everything was great, still trying to maintain and manage my life. And so I would go in the studio and I'd work, and even though I might not have been living the most honest life at the time, the stuff that was the creative stuff that was coming out of me, you can't lie to that. You can't lie to your creative self. Like that stuff, it was so honest and pure. And I think there was just something about that helped me take my work where it is today. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't just because I was creating art that I found recovery and all that. I had to do a ton of work on myself. I had to do a ton of acceptance and just knowing that I had to make changes in my life, and it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It was devastating. It was awful. I mean, I lost a lot of things, but you have to walk through that in order to get through the other side. And all it's done is just made me a more resilient, stronger, and a more caring person. And I think that with what I'm doing with my art and where I want to take it just kind of helps. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain sometimes.
Was there ever fear that you might lose where your art comes from if you became clean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, because there would be, it's like peaks and valleys. There would be times where I would be really productive, and then there would be gaps of 5 years where I wouldn't do anything. But there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't feel guilt. I wasn't kicking myself. I'd wake up and I just had this sick feeling in my stomach that I wasn't doing it, but I couldn't. During some of those times, I just couldn't. I was doing everything in my power, and everything that I could do was the best that I could do at the time, was just to survive, and just to try to make it through the next day. So, but now that I've like the 3 years leading up to when I got clean, and then where I'm at today, I mean, the production of work I'm producing almost 2-3 pieces, 5 pieces or 6 pieces a week. Like it's and that's even working a full-time job on the railway, and 4 kids at home, and a wife, and other responsibilities. And that it's just you have to. So what I tell my kids is that I'm always drawing with them at the table, and they're just like, "Oh, Dad, how'd you get so good at this?" And it's because I did it every day. It's just practice, practice, practice. And I don't try to push being an artist on my kids at all. They see me, so I kind of just lead by example anyway. But if they ask me to draw and stuff, then sure, yeah, I love doing that. But if they want to end up doing something else, obviously, yeah, they can do whatever they wish. So part of me that hopes that at least 1 or 2 of them might, because I just think that would be really cool. But it's definitely not something that they have to do.
Right. As we move into this new digital age, the metaverse and everything like that, how is that affecting your art?
So I was researching NFTs for about a year before I got into them, and I was at first really skeptical, because I was like everyone else, reading the stories of how some pixelated donkey or some pixelated figure or whatever, some other kind of drawing sold for $700,000 so I was, at first of it, I was skeptical. But then I started researching it, and then I started seeing artists that I was friends with on Facebook, or on Instagram rather, move from doing what they're doing, and then I started seeing that they were talking about minting pieces on OpenSea and minting pieces on all these other different NFT platforms. And then I saw the one guy, Eddie England is his name, and he was a struggling street artist a year ago, and today he's a millionaire. And he's done it by building his NFTs and giving back into the community and building positive community within it. So I was skeptical about that part of it, but once I realized that the community was really, because the thing about NFTs is that the money goes right back to the artist. there's no, it's decentralized, so there isn't this idea of someone else always getting like the cut of the money. Like in a gallery, that you can have your own virtual galleries now where people can come in the metaverse and they can look at your work and they can buy it. But the community in general, when we talk about the positivity of it, is that it reminded the community, like when I say the NFT community, it's built really on Twitter's, where everyone really kind of hangs out, and everyone's always, it's all about building everyone up. It's about sharing ideas and helping each other, and we're seeing this shift in like Art Basel, for example, is this the thing that happens in the States, where it's usually just like physical paintings and that, and it's a show showing artists and that. But now there's the NFTs have been involved in it, and that was the biggest part of the whole Art Basel thing, was this whole NFT thing, because it's not just digital artwork, it's artists that do physical artwork as well, and it's this movement that's building, and people create projects and which give back to communities, and it's helping artists from countries in the world that, like Nigeria, for example, has a lot of talented, incredible artists that are using the NFT platform in order to help support their families, help get their art out there, and to help building their own positive communities in their own country. So it's fantastic. I mean, it's still also new, but it's extremely exciting.
What kind of trust level do you need to have with your tattoo artist to have them tattoo your own work?
It's been it's great. It's Kelly Wright is doing it at Bigfoot Tattoos at Clay's shop there, yeah, we've known each other for a while, and it's been a learning experience. It's not done yet. It's a long ways to go yet, but yeah, I know it's. I think there might be. I want him to just go with it, and I think he might be holding back a little bit because it's my work, and wants to try to make it look like it doesn't necessarily have to look like my work. I mean, it's always going to, but just kind of just. So that's going to be that's the sort of the dance that we're in right now, is just trying to find the confidence. I think. Because I think that to answer your question, I think it can be difficult for someone to try to do that, because like I would probably have a hard time trying to do someone else's work too, but I think the way that I would approach it would be just put my style into it, and as long as the bones of it, they're gonna know that it's that person's work. But yeah. I don't know. It's pretty awesome. Like I have to thank my wife for the idea, because I wanted to get like Vikings and all this kind of stuff, because I saw like all this really cool, like detailed, and she's like, "Why would you get something like that? Why wouldn't you just get your artwork put on you?" And what better way to show? And I was just like, "Oh, isn't that kind of pretentious?" And like, I don't know. I just thought that seemed arrogant, maybe to a certain degree. And then she's like, "Well, why? It's what you do. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be confidently wearing that on your, having that on your arm?" I was like, that's a good point. So yeah, that's what I did. So that's going to be the goal, is to do that, and then maybe another one, another sleeve. But I have that on my website where people can, I'll license some of my pieces, so people just pay a licensing fee, and then they can get a piece of mine if they like.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming by and talking. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, do you think?
Oh, 5 years? Let's see. I've already sort of talked to. I would love to be a working artist on my way of having some of the things that I've already spoken about here, and to be maybe a leader in the community, and someone that's trying to get more cultural things and more art things happening in this community.
I think you're well on the way to doing that.
I hope so, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us at Conversations at the Effie, and we'll see you next time.